Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Savage Files. I'm your host, Jade Savage, and I've missed you guys. I'm so happy to be back. I want to jump right in with today's case out of Houston, Texas. It has gone on for 7 years, but it has been a roller coaster. I cannot wait to hear your thoughts and opinions, so without further ado, let's jump right in. On Friday, July 29th, 2016, 911 dispatch received a phone call from inside the Armstrong residence.
911, do you need medical, police, or fire?
Going to be police. He's whispering. Advising he just heard gunshot in the parents' room.
Is this a house?
Yes.
And your name?
AJ.
Any medical attention needed?
I heard gunshots, so I don't really know.
In your parents' bedroom?
Yes.
On the phone was a 16-year-old Aj Armstrong. His demeanor was oddly calm as he explained to the operator that he heard gunshots coming from his parents' bedroom. He explained that after he heard the noise, he saw that his parents' bedroom door was cracked, and that was odd to him because it was never cracked open. The only other person inside the residence was his sister Kara, who was 12 years old at the time. After both AJ and Kara were both retrieved from the residence safely, police entered the home not knowing what to expect. Police discovered Dawn and Antonio Armstrong in their bed. Dawn Armstrong was shot twice in the head and was deceased, and Antonio Armstrong was shot once in the head and was in critical condition. Investigators found it odd that both Antonio and Dawn had pillows placed over their face that were clearly placed there after they were shot. After investigators secured the crime scene, they learned that there was no point of entry where it appeared that an intruder would have entered the home. There were no broken windows. It didn't appear that anybody tried to kick a door in. All of the doors and windows were locked and secured, and the security system was on. How did an intruder enter the residence undetected? And who would want to murder Dawn and Antonio Armstrong? Dawn and Antonio Armstrong seemed to be living this picture-perfect life in their beautiful home in Bel Air, Texas with their beautiful family. Dawn and Antonio had 3 beautiful children together, the youngest being Kara Armstrong, the middle child Antonio Armstrong Jr., aka Aj Armstrong, and the oldest is Josh Armstrong, who was Dawn's biological son, but Antonio Sr. did adopt him when he was a small child. As police start to look into Antonio and Dawn's life together, they start to understand that the Armstrong family may not be so picture perfect after all. On the night of the murders, once AJ and Kara were removed from the home, their hands were immediately bagged up and tested for gunshot residue. AJ was then formally questioned about the events that took place inside the Armstrong residence that evening. Now this is where things take a turn because AJ's story is changing from what he told the 911 operator. On the phone with 911, he tells the operator that he heard gunshots come from his parents' bedroom. He saw that the door was cracked, which was unusual, which prompted him to call 911. Now, just 5 hours after that phone call, he's changing his story and saying as he was walking down the stairs, he saw the masked intruder walking out of his parents' bedroom.
And I was making my way down the stairs, and that's when I heard the gunshots, when I got like 4 or 5 stairs down, and I looked.
Dude, how many you heard?
I mean, I think I heard 2, but it may have been 3. I'm not really 100% positive, but I know it's 2 or 3, and I saw someone coming out, so I just took off back upstairs. They had it was like a mask, and you could only see the eyes and the mouth, but he looked like a black guy, but I'm not 100% positive, but I'm pretty sure it was an African American, and I'd say 6 feet maybe, somewhere around there. I couldn't give you an age range. I didn't really get to see his face or anything like that.
Although AJ alleges that there was an intruder inside their home that evening that killed his parents, police were not able to find any evidence to support that theory. The only piece of evidence that was located at the crime scene that made it appear that there was an intruder in the home was a handwritten note that read, "I've been watching you for a long time. Come get me." Regardless of his claims of an intruder and his claims of his innocence, Antonio Armstrong Jr. was charged for the murder of his mother and father, Dawn and Antonio Armstrong. In April of 2017, when AJ Armstrong was just 17 years old, he was released on a $200,000 bond and required to wear an ankle monitor. In March 2019, almost 3 years after Dawn and Antonio were murdered, the trial against AJ Armstrong begins. As the trial begins, we start to understand the contentious relationship between AJ and his parents. AJ is starting to be rebellious. He's starting to fail his classes. He's sneaking out to go see his girlfriend. He's doing drugs and partying. In text messages between AJ and his parents, you can see their frustration starting to brew. In a text message, Antonio Sr. says, "I'm sick of getting reports about silly crap you're doing. Last warning." To which Dawn responds, "I totally agree. The way he's acting, he doesn't deserve that car. Something slow, less impressive, and old would fit his maturity." In a separate text message, Dawn says, "Yes, you did. I checked the alarm. You're lying. I know you left. The alarm doesn't lie. You lie." In another text message a month later, Dawn says, "All you do is drink, smoke, and lie." In a text message sent 3 months before the murder, Aj Armstrong says to his girlfriend, "My mom just keeps yelling at me and it's really pissing me off." But AJ's defense attorney says that's just normal kids doing normal kid things. He's 16, he's being rebellious, he has a girlfriend, he's partying. That's just what a normal 16-year-old does. AJ's defense then tries to shift blame and point the finger at AJ's brother, Josh Armstrong. Josh was home at his apartment less than a mile away from the Armstrong residence at the time of the murder. AJ's defense says that Josh had a history of mental illness, which would make him more likely to commit this crime than AJ. He also lived less than a mile away from the residence, which would have given him plenty of time to commit the murders and go home before police arrived. Prosecutors said Josh Armstrong's mental health issues started 4 months after his parents' death, and his girlfriend at the time testified in court and said that they were together, she was asleep, but Josh was playing video games, and that there's no way he could have killed his parents. The prosecution has set their sights on peeling back the layers of the Armstrong family to reveal that AJ is a troublesome teenager who's rebelling and he's angry at his parents, and that was the motive for killing Dawn and Antonio. The facts in this case are that the test results came back negative for any gunshot residue or blood on AJ's clothes or on his hands. And furthermore, there was never any fingerprints on the notepad or the pen or the drawer or anything from the note that the intruder left saying, "Come and get me." The one thing that prosecution feels without a shadow of a doubt that makes AJ Armstrong guilty of this crime is the alarm system. Remember, the night of the incident, AJ disarmed the alarm from inside the Armstrong residence when police arrived. There was no sign of forced entry into the home, and according to the alarm system, nobody came or left the residence that evening. Inside the residence, there were sensors on each floor of the home. These sensors show movement on each floor and at what time the movement occurs. On the night of the murder, it shows that AJ was upstairs charging his phone on the 3rd floor, and at 1:08 a.m. his phone was unplugged. At 1:09 a.m., 1 minute later, the sensor on the 2nd floor where his parents' bedroom is located goes off. Then at 1:25 a.m., just 15 minutes before AJ calls 911, the sensor on the 1st floor goes off. AJ's defense stated that the alarm system is untrustworthy and inaccurate, claiming that in July of 2016 that there were at least 77 different errors in the alarm records for the Armstrong home. There are 2 other inconsistencies in this case that stand out to me. Detectives located a patch of carpet outside of Dawn and Antonio's bedroom door that looked like it was set on fire. When questioned about this, AJ said he was playing with some matches and dropped one and it burned the carpet. However, detectives claim that the fire looked like it was started with an accelerant such as gasoline or lighter fluid. And then there's a bullet hole discrepancy. Detectives located a bullet hole that went through Dawn and Antonio's bedroom ceiling. If you remember, AJ's bedroom was on the 3rd floor, which was right above Dawn and Antonio's bedroom. When detectives find the bullet hole, there's a pile of socks on top of it, which they believe is AJ's attempt to hide it. When confronted, AJ said that him and his friend were playing in his room, and he asked him if he'd ever seen a gun go off, and his friend said no, so AJ took his father's .22 caliber gun and shot it into a pillow, and he didn't think it was going to go through the floor. But early on in the investigation, AJ said he hadn't touched that gun for years. Matter of fact, in the 911 call, you hear AJ say, I don't know where my dad keeps his gun. I think it's under the bed or in his nightstand. But now he's claiming that 2 or 3 weeks before Dawn and Antonio were murdered, that he test fired the gun in the house. Everything that the prosecution has on AJ is circumstantial evidence. There's no DNA, there's no blood splatter on AJ, no gunshot residue, none of AJ's blood on any of the victims, no fingerprints on the weapon or on the notepad or the pen, nothing. After a month-long trial in April 2019, the jury can't come to a unanimous decision, so it was a mistrial. By the time AJ's October 2022 trial starts, he's now married to his girlfriend that he was dating at the time of his parents' murder, and they together had a little boy. Just weeks after the second trial starts in 2022, the jury cannot find him guilty or not guilty. They are hung, and this is deemed the second mistrial. In the case against Aj Armstrong, the prosecution said, "We want to go round 3. So the trial date was set, and all of a sudden, out of the woodwork comes brand new, damaging evidence against AJ. Almost 7 years since his parents were murdered, and this case was tried 2 separate times, the prosecution discovered new blood evidence on AJ's shirt that he was wearing the night of the murder. And the prosecution located this evidence the Friday before the trial began. Very interesting timing. The prosecution claims that when AJ was brought to the station in the outfit he was wearing that night, they put a sticker, a name tag on his t-shirt, and nobody ever thought to remove the name tag and check under the name tag for blood. The defense argues that that shirt has been brought in and out of an evidence room. It has been mixed in with evidence that does have blood on it, and that it could be cross-contaminated from the other trials where the shirt was shown in court and placed back into bins with other evidence that was bloody. And to be clear, this wasn't a blood stain. This wasn't spatter. How the expert described it is that after Antonio was killed, he exhaled blood and it shot out into the air, and as it was traveling, it dried and then landed on AJ's t-shirt. So the blood was very small. In the third trial, the prosecution is still leaning heavily on the theory that AJ is a disgruntled teenager lashing out at his parents, specifically his mother, and that's the motive for this crime. And again, they're emphasizing the alarm system and how it's accurate. They're showing a text message in court that Dawn sent to AJ that says the alarm system doesn't lie, you lie. And now they have this blood evidence on AJ's shirt that was located, and they feel like they really got a home run this time. 7 years after the murders occurred, even to this day, AJ's family stands behind him in his innocence, including his sister Kara, who was in the home the night their parents died. AJ's grandmother claimed he was just a kid at the time. He was just going through normal things that normal teenagers go through. And yes, he lied to police, but adults lie to police because they get scared, let alone a kid. His parents just died, and it's a very scary situation for a kid to be in. AJ's family claims the detectives never looked for another suspect. They laser focused themselves on AJ. 2 days after Dawn and Antonio were gunned down in their home, masked intruders broke into Antonio Sr.'s gym and stole a laptop. They stole nothing else besides a laptop. And those individuals were never investigated in connection with the murder of Dawn and Antonio. AJ's family claims that there were so many pieces of evidence that were not looked into and investigated by detectives or prosecution that could possibly exonerate AJ, and they stand by his innocence. In August of 2023, the jury comes back with their decision in the third trial for Aj Armstrong. This time, AJ receives a unanimous guilty verdict. AJ was sentenced to life in prison with a possibility of parole after 40 years. At this point, AJ is 23 years old, and he's worn a GPS monitor on his ankle for his entire adult life. Now, this is where things get interesting. A month after the trial, AJ and his team file a motion for a fourth trial, which gets denied by the judge. They also filed a federal lawsuit against the city of Houston, claiming the Houston Police Department planted the blood DNA evidence on AJ's t-shirt. Records show that that lawsuit was dismissed in December. So let's fast forward to April 2024. The Harris County District Attorney's Office informed Aj Armstrong that his case may be associated with a forensic analyst who was terminated for faulty work. Rochelle Austin, who was hired by the Houston Forensic Science Center in 2019, was terminated this March in 2024 because of an inability to produce quality work as well as a lack of attention to detail. So naturally, AJ's defense team filed a motion for a new trial. AJ's attorney wrote in the filing that they never knew about this evidence or the analyst's lack of core competence, which resulted in her removal. This matter was clearly under investigation prior to the disclosure date. He wants to know, when could this information have been disclosed, and was it deliberately withheld until after the trial? This backs up that filing that AJ's team made a month after he was convicted, when they said they believed the Houston Police Department planted DNA evidence on AJ's t-shirt.
In that filing in 2023, AJ's defense team questioned the credibility of a different expert witness for the prosecution. The expert that they were questioning in that filing was the expert that found the blood under the name tag on AJ's t-shirt. And the reason that they were questioning her credibility is because she was the subject of a 2019 complaint alleging that she planted fabricated DNA evidence in another murder trial. So AJ's defense team is saying that the expert that located the blood was not credible, and that the expert that tested the blood was not credible. And the expert that tested the DNA got fired for her inability to produce quality work, lack of attention to detail, and incompetence. The motion for a retrial was filed in May of 2024. We're in July of 2024, so it's always a process, but I would not be surprised if we saw a fourth trial for Aj Armstrong. This is such a controversial case, so I would love to know your guys' thoughts and opinions in the comments on if you think Aj is guilty or is he innocent. I know here in Houston, people want to see Aj walk free, but I want to hear your guys' opinions on it. It's been 8 years since Dawn and Antonio died, and this case still has so many twists and turns. I would be shocked if the court did not grant a fourth trial, and if they do, I'm going to be front and center because I am locked in. This one always gets me on the edge of my seat. Thanks so much for hanging out today. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast episode. Don't forget to subscribe for more true crime podcasts, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.